Hey guys, I'm Anna Kasparian and I'm here live at the DNC with none other than Jerry Springer. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, were you at the RNC by any chance?
No, I was on a family vacation.
That sounds much better than being at the RNC, I gotta be honest.
And my grandson wanted to go to the circus. I said, well, let's turn this on.
Perfect. Well, it was quite the circus. Well, you're here at the DNC now. It's a pleasure to have you. And just some quick thoughts on, the environment, the atmosphere. What brings you here?
Well, I've been to every Democratic convention since 1972. So, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I work hard for the party. I raise money and give speeches. So that's why I'm here, and I want Hillary Clinton to be our next president. And so I'm doing everything I can as a private citizen to see that that happens. And then I have a podcast, and Jerry Springer podcast. Just go to it on whatever, whether you use Facebook or whatever, hit like, and then you'll get every episode. I do a weekly podcast, which is political. There's a little bit of comedy and music, but mostly it's political, and where I share my liberal views.
I love that. Everyone should check that out.
And I'm doing the podcast from here.
All right. Well, what do you think about the fact that at the moment it does seem as though the Democratic Party is divided? We did see some division among the Republicans as well, but right now, considering the WikiLeaks, email leak regarding what the DNC was doing during the primaries and how they supported Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, do you think that that bodes well for Hillary Clinton, or do you think that this division is going to impact her negatively moving forward?
Well, it's certainly an unfortunate situation. First of all political parties that don't have an incumbent on their ticket are divided, at least a little bit in the beginning, because you have primaries. So obviously the supporters of one candidate that doesn't get the nomination, not all of them are going to come on over right away. Some of them have hard feelings, different points of view. So you don't get everybody. But basically the party will be united, and I think the country will too, because in the end, you can argue about emails, but we're talking about the future of the world, the future of our nation. And it's pretty hard for a serious person to say, yeah, I think Donald Trump ought to be president of the United States. Yeah. I mean, it's just not a serious conversation. It shows a total disrespect for our country. And put politics aside. It has nothing to do with Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative. Perfect example, all the Republican nominees for president over the last 20 years, they didn't show up. So it's not a matter of just Republicans. People are saying that the idea that you have such disrespect for America that you think you can be leader of the free world and president of our beloved nation when you have never, ever run a government of any size, not a village. You have no idea how to provide public services, raise the income for it, the economic policies, nothing, no experience. And you say, for my first job, I think I want to be president.
Yeah.
It would be a sitcom. If you came to the television network, you graduated from college, you have never been on television, and you go in and say, I'd like to be the CEO of the network.
It does sound a little absurd, but to Donald Trump's credit, he did make an argument in response to similar criticisms, and he did say that he's winning and he always has been winning. Don't you believe that that's enough for someone to become the president of the United States?
No, Michael Jordan always was winning.
Right.
And he shouldn't be president, and I love him.
No,
it's a totally different field. God forbid you have a child and you have to bring your child in for surgery, real important surgery. And when you go into that operating room, you want to know that the doctor performing the surgery on your child has at least gone to medical school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. But right now, there are certain voters on the Democratic side that feel as though they are not going to be represented, or their best interests won't be represented by Hillary. And that's not to say that they believe Trump is a better candidate, but they feel like they are making a point by voting based on their principles or not voting based on their principles, that they're going to stand up to the current political system that we have in place right now and really make an argument for real change. But,
Okay, they can do that. And they'll make a point. But when you make a point, there are consequences. And you have to weigh those consequences. And a lot of the people they're going to survive whatever happens. But there are an awful lot of people that really depend on what the government can deliver. So it isn't a matter just of, well, it'd be a fairer economic policy if we did this, that, and the other. I get it. And I agree with Bernie Sanders. But when I think of what the options are, there are people, be a minority in America for a moment. And imagine Donald Trump as president. Imagine if you're a Muslim. Imagine if you're Hispanic. Imagine if you're African American. And you're living with a man that degrades you, that wants to ban some of the people from coming in the country, wants to deport others. I mean, good Lord. We can have points of view and debate them and move in that direction. But think of the consequences. If you're not worried about being deported and you don't care about that, well, fine, you can make any point you want. But the people that are going to suffer if Donald Trump is president really, really suffer in a big way.
What are your thoughts on the argument that maybe we need to elect someone who would just be a complete and utter disaster to lead to actual political change? Do you agree with that argument at all? Do you think there's any credibility behind it?
Well, no, because we may all be gone. We live in a nuclear age.
What worries you?
And he's talking about pulling out of NATO. He's bashing China all the time, so that last week you probably saw in the newspapers, China's saying if America wants war, we're ready. What? Oh, we got a guy who may be president with his finger on the nuclear button, and he's talking about we may have a war with China? I mean, wake up, time out. Let's have debates on some of these policies, on what kind of health insurance we should have. I agree with that. But good Lord, in the meantime, let's not turn the country over to someone who could blow it up.
What do you think Hillary Clinton can do to really reach out to the Sanders supporters that aren't really buying her yet, that aren't really buying the argument that they need to vote for her, that don't feel like she's done enough to garner progressive support? What do you think she can do?
Well, there are some people she won't get. And that's true of every election. People that are unhappy with the candidate of their party sometimes stay home. Every election that happens. So there'll be some. Most, knowing what the consequences are, will wind up voting for Hillary. Most. Because she's better. And look, Bernie Sanders, God love him, and I love his policies. And the truth of the matter is that the party moved a little bit in that direction. He's made the party platform more liberal. He's made Hillary Clinton more liberal. So he's already had an effect. And it doesn't stop here. The next thing we got to have is a Democratic Congress. Think about the Supreme Court. You saw what Donald Trump promised on the Supreme Court. You really willing to give up the next 20 years of decisions coming down from the Supreme Court because you were pissed off at Hillary? I mean, I'm just saying you got to put things in perspective. Yes, we got to keep pushing for a more liberal agenda. Yes, we got to keep applying pressure on the party. But saying we'll show them, we'll have Donald Trump, who do you think you're showing?
And, one final question. What are your thoughts on the timing of what WikiLeaks released in regard to those emails? Do you feel that this could potentially have something to do with Russia and Russia's support of Donald Trump? There's been a lot of speculation about that, considering Donald Trump has had some pretty deep ties to Russia and Vladimir Putin.
Sure, it could be. I mean, who knows? I'm sure there are people that are going to investigate this. But I'm saying none of this other stuff matters. If you're seriously thinking about a Trump presidency and the consequences to our country that we profess to love, there's no other choice right now. There really isn't. It's a hard discussion to have. But at some point you got to say, maybe we're moving towards the total liberal agenda slower than we wanted. But we're moving there. Turning the country over to the right wing with a conservative, then you'll have a conservative right-wing Supreme Court. Then you'll have a right-wing Senate. Then you'll have we already have a right-wing Congress. I mean, really? You want to just blow up America and say, that'll show us?
Well, we are supposed to have a system of checks and balances in place, but I do agree with you. If you have a conservative Congress, a conservative Supreme Court, and a conservative president, it does
Well,
very
you
little
will.
for progressive causes. I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your ideas. Pleasure
Thanks.
to speak with you. Have a good
Thanks.
one. Thank you, guys. See you soon.